what your agency was feeling like.
Honestly, like the word that really comes to my mind is just like confusion. So it's just so much of me and my wife every day just saying like, are we doing this correctly? That feeling of just like feast and famine and just not having that predictable revenue source coming in, predictable leads coming through the front door. It was really stressful, to be honest with you.
What was something that maybe like kept you up?
We were a vitamin as opposed to a Nurofen. The biggest thing was knowing if we're offering, if what we're offering is valuable enough.
What does it look like now?
It's a team of 4. We've cracked $40,000 months. It's an operation. I wouldn't recognize it from, 6 months ago.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Super pumped to do a case study with my dude, Justin. Justin, what's up, man?
Good to be here, man.
Good to be here with you. So Justin is from Australia. What time is it in Australia right now?
6 a.m. 6 a.m. Nice and early.
You're used to it. Cool, man. Why don't you just give a quick little introduction to people watching this, a little bit about you, a little bit about your agency, all that sort of stuff.
So yeah, my name is Justin Hughes and we own a creative agency here on the Gold Coast, Australia. I think I might be the only honorary Australian in Agency U at the moment. But yeah, we have an agency called Creative Founders where we help founders who are typically behind the scenes. They've usually worked in the shadows and really helping them build their personal brand and really adopt the mindset of a creator. And that's something that we've been doing. It's taken different shapes and forms over the years, which we can get into today. We've been running it, me and my wife. She's a co-founder for the last few years since COVID, but it's really transformed into what it is today over this past 6 months since we've been working with Agency U, which has been a wild ride and it's been really, really great, really insightful. But yeah, that's kind of where we're up to today.
Super cool business, and your content is lit too. Like, you do such a good job. Mad talent. Why don't you give us a quick just rundown of what your agency was feeling like when you were in that decision-making process of something like Agency U? Like, what was the day-to-day like? What was like the general consensus? What are some of the things that you were struggling with?
Honestly, like the word that really comes to my mind is just like confusion. Like, especially, I'm assuming everyone goes through this to a degree, but at least here where I'm at in Australia, like I'm not really around other people that are agency owners or even particularly like business owners or entrepreneurs. So it's just so much of me and my wife every day just saying like, is this right? Like, are we doing this correctly? Like, how are we going to be getting leads? Like, should we be pricing? Is this priced correct? Like, just so many unknowns that, that was just like the day to day of just always constantly not knowing whether or not we're doing the right thing, not knowing the next steps. And I think like a lot of people who are probably in a similar position to what we were is just that feeling of just like feast and famine and just not having that predictable revenue source coming in, predictable leads coming through the front door. It was really stressful. It was really stressful, to be honest with you. Yeah.
What was one of the things that you felt like super confused about? And it's kind of hard to like look back because you're probably not as confused on it, but looking back, like what was something that maybe like kept you up in you were like, oh, I keep thinking about this one thing. If I could just solve this one thing.
Just knowing if we were offering the right thing. Like as sort of my story, my wife came from the restaurant industry. That's naturally who we gravitated towards servicing. So we were offering just, content packages for them, running their social media. But anyone who sort of knows in the restaurant industry, there's very tight profit margins. There's not a lot of money to go around, especially in today's climate. So we always kind of felt like we were, I suppose the way that you would put it is we were a vitamin as opposed to a Nurofen. And we always felt like we were one bad week away from losing them as a client. And that was just a constant perpetual feeling of stress that we couldn't quite get rid of. So yeah, that was kind of the biggest thing, was knowing if we're offering, if what we're offering is valuable enough. I mean, I know more and more people now know that they should be doing content, but it's still low on the, you have a bad month, you have a bad week. It's like the first thing to go is like, oh, this amount that we're paying per week for just organic content. That's usually the first to go, at least in our experience. So yeah, that was the biggest thing, knowing what the offer is, and then just knowing if we're pricing correctly, if we're too expensive, not expensive enough, are we covering our costs, are we making profit? There was a lot of unknowns.
So like the offer, so just making sure that, because you had felt as a content agency, oh, if I'm just delivering videos, then I could be on my last leg if they don't get an ROI. Or if they bring up ROI, I'm like, oh crap, I don't know. Like, how do I track that? for example.
100%. Yeah. Like that was the biggest thing, is especially as that barrier to getting people to, sign a contract, is like, what's the ROI? And it's that similar conversation, or that same old one where it's like, look, it's organic social media, it's a long-term play, it's a brand awareness campaign. Like it's a hard sell. It really is. And there's so many variables when it comes to just strictly organic content. We can do everything on our end to make sure that it does as good as possible, but are they good on camera? Are they charismatic? There's so many variables. And it's difficult. It can be really stressful.
And then pricing. So when it comes to pricing, like or I guess just those two things in general, like overall, it was just a feeling of confusion, a feeling of like, am I doing the right thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then to go back on the pricing, it was just guessing. It was guessing, starting low, edging up, and hoping. Whereas when we worked with you and just agency you in general, and there was a formula, and it seems so obvious to me now that we've been working together for 6 months. Like it's crazy how much has changed over this past 6 months. Things that are just so normal for me now were really confusing back then. But yeah, just something as simple as pricing, and then always knowing that we wanted to hire at some point, but going like, can we even afford this? Sure. Like this is gonna, especially without that reliable lead source coming through. That's really stressful.
And then like, what was it that piqued your interest to even like have a conversation with Agency U? Was it a specific ad, or like what was it like? Wow.
Your video sort of hit my recommended on YouTube at just like the right time. For anyone sort of listening, we found out that my wife is having a baby, and that was happening in December. And since we sort of started our agency, I call it an agency, but for the longest time, it really was just me and my wife freelancing. The thing about freelancing, and the thing about it being 50-50, is like at some point I'm going to lose 50% of this business. So it was really at this point where I'm like, holy shit, like we need to work something out. We need to turn this into more of an operation as opposed to just a freelancing business that I'm heavily reliant on my wife for. And it was at that point, I can't remember the video exactly, but I believe it was you walking sort of through the productized process. And I literally remember sitting here, I was on my computer, I was eating lunch. And I was like, Bree, I was just calling out to her. I'm like, you've got to watch this. We put it up on the TV. Nice. And I'm like, this is speaking directly to me. I'm like, this is something that and like from that day, we sort of, because we were already in the thinking about hiring an editor at that point. I was getting super burnt out by doing all of the editing myself, as I'm sure a lot of people watching this can resonate with. And it was from that day I was like, we just at least implemented the process in which you can sort of hire and vet editors, which was super helpful. But I'd already sort of, just from that video alone, I was like, let's do this. And then just seeing how effective just that one part of that process was, that was kind of like that sealed the deal for us. I'm like, these guys know what they're talking about. Nice. I can tell that you're super genuine. It's coming from a real place. It's not just, I mean, God, anyone who's looked up and just the agency space on social media in general, it's got a bit of a stigma to it. So it was really refreshing to see someone like yourself that had clearly been there, clearly done it, had been in the trenches yourself, and is now genuinely coming from a place to help other agency owners, not just you hit your first 10K month and now I'm selling a course on that. Yeah, that was really what did it for us.
Cool, man. Thanks for sharing all that. Now let's talk about 6 months, 5-6 months, however long it is, specifically whatever it is. What does it look like now, from like your feeling, from your acumen? Like I think emotionally, how are you feeling from the perspective of like confidence, of clarity, from the offer, from the pricing, from the leads, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, from 6 months ago to today, 6 months ago it was just my wife and I, we were doing pretty sporadic, months in terms of going from 5 to 10K months. I mean, sometimes on a good month, if we had sort of one-off jobs here and there off, sort of singular projects, we'd maybe scrape 15. To today, it's a team of 4. We've cracked $40,000 months. It's an operation. It's become a living and breathing business. Like I used to feel a little bit of shame around saying, oh, I'm a business owner. There was just something there where it's like, because it didn't feel like that. Yeah. Whereas today, fast forward today, having the team meetings, doing the quarterly meetings, having a sort of a living and breathing sort of machine that's working, especially, and we can get into the the agency UOS on Notion, like just how much that was, how big of a help that was for us. It's turned in, I wouldn't recognize it from, 6 months ago.
It sounds like you like are seeing your business as a business, and you're like actually running your business like a CEO, like a business owner, and it's not just like a feast, famine, freelance, ad hoc, whatever comes this month, I'm going to figure it out. But now you have like a system in place with the OS, with all that sort of stuff, and you can just like look at the system and see what the system needs from like an improvement perspective, and that's the levers that you need to pull.
100%. And that was the thing. I was just like, I remember 6 months ago going like, it's one of those things you can sort of see the top of the mountain, but you just don't know how the hell you're going to get there. And it's so interesting now. I don't take much time to reflect, honestly. That's why it's good doing stuff like this. It really is kind of mind-blowing just how far we've come in that 6 months. But yeah, in terms of what it feels like a business. It is a business. Yeah, I'm definitely stepping much more into that CEO role and just sort of managing the operations, managing the systems, managing the processes. And as opposed to just editing for 8 hours a day.
Reacting to whatever needs to get done.
100%. And just feeling like we're a slave to our clients.
It's super, I mean, the common denominator in everybody that I talk to who comes on and has success is like, you took action. Like I remember you posting on your stories, like hammering the OS, like getting all this stuff built out, like creating a lot of content. You're up early, you're getting after it. But the benefit is huge. But the common denominator of why you're feeling that way is because you took massive action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been someone who, if I'm going to do it, I really want to give it my all. Mm-hmm. But we did also have that blessing and a curse, I suppose, but just that, that clock that was ticking for December in terms of, losing my business partner. That was a real thing. That was a real sort of fire that it lit up inside of me. And it, like I said before, it was just kind of that perfect storm. It really happened at the same time. And it was like, we were already thinking about, I can't actually remember, maybe we'd already signed with Agency U, and then it was like a week later we found out that Brie was pregnant. But it was just this, something had to change, and I would I couldn't imagine what it would have just been, having to learn all the lessons that I've learned, like just myself, get those scars myself without learning it from you guys and having that constant back and forth, that constant support and that shortcut.
What like specifically did we do together, like share with the people, and then like what was most helpful for you as it pertains to getting you to, for like kind of freelance, React, no systems, to now even your acumen is like significantly different, where it's just more like, this is the business, I know what levers to pull, that sort of stuff. Like what was it for you?
What was most sort of surprising and helpful to me in particular was just like the sheer amount of like support that we received, in terms of not only like jumping on with you and like you genuine, like not, anyone who sort of comes onto Agency U, they'll see that there's a ton of templates, there's a ton of SOPs, all of that stuff. But it's not just like, all right, there you go. It's like you're in my Notion account building it out in front of me. Not to mention I'm sending voice messages to Gilberto, like I've just jumped off a sales call, like what do you think I should do around this? Or jumping on with Matt to talk about offers. Like what blew me away was just like the support. Like every time something would happen, because my wife and I were just so used to just like figuring it out ourselves, we would sit there, figure it out ourselves, and then we go, hang on, let's just shoot it across into Slack. And then within like 10 minutes, we've just got this answer. Like I cannot explain just how helpful that was, even as it pertains to, we secured a really good deal not long after we sort of signed on with you guys. And that's been over the past 6 months, it's been over a 70K deal, working with a really, really high level entrepreneur. And like, that was without sort of having you guys to bounce off for that, because anyone who's kind of worked with, anyone who's like a 9-figure, nearly 10-figure entrepreneur, they don't really play with the same rules as everyone else. There's very little communication. They move quickly. There's no onboarding. You just kind of, you're just kind of going with it. But it was one of those deals that it would have been silly to say no to, but just having you guys to just be like, hey, what would you do in this situation? What do you think we should do here? Are we pricing this correctly? When we haven't heard back from him very much, like what would, and just having that sounding board, that was super invaluable.
I remember when you were pricing that deal out and you were just like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest deal ever. Like, I don't know, does this make sense? And you were like all nervous about it, but it worked.
Yeah, 100%.
It's good. So now there's
Yeah,
lots of
exactly.
margin,
And it's heaps of margin. And again, like it wasn't like that kind of deal just happened. And it was a stroke of luck, but like it just wouldn't have been the same. We wouldn't have offered the same. We wouldn't have had, it's been incredibly valuable just to have that support throughout that.
Okay, so the support has been the most helpful for you, and then just like what specifically that we worked on has been probably the most enlightening for you in your business, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, like definitely the offer was the biggest light bulb moment, and we didn't sort of like, we've gone through many iterations over the past 6 months and testing things and trying things out, but really falling on the fact that, you know, trying to work out how to make it so it's a Nurofen and not a vitamin. That was super insightful in terms of how do we make it so we are so invaluable to our clients that it's silly for them to say no to us. That was, you know, and making it so we're creating an offer that's like less labor intensive, and coming at it from more of like a creative partner model. These are all things that we just would never have known ourselves. And then sort of on top of that, it's just like all of the systems, dude. Like the SOPs, the systems, like even just down to, you know, for anyone watching this and you're like, however many systems or SOPs you think are in like the agency use sort of resource section, like 10x it. Like we have this sort of joke, me and my wife, where it's like we'll have a question or something that we'll be like, oh, don't worry, it'll be in there. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's always in there. Like you need a job description for like a video editor, just copy and paste it. Like it's all in there.
Nice.
So that the systems, and obviously, you know, getting our business running like a machine from that Notion operating system was just game changer.
What would you say to somebody who's watching this who has maybe had a call with us, or maybe they're thinking about booking a call and they're like, are these people legit? Should I do this? Like, what would you say to that person watching right now?
Dude, just make the investment. Like if I could, like if there was one thing that I could say to myself, like we stood on the fence, like on the fences on the sidelines, for so long, just going like, should we invest in help? Should we not invest in help? And it was like a good couple of years where we're like, I don't know, you know, and because especially like it's usually, you know, a relatively sizable investment. If you're a smallish business, it can be really daunting. But like if I could say something to myself 6 months ago, it's like I wish I'd done it 2 years ago. Like like just I've already mentioned the sort of 70K, like the 70K deal that we secured since we've started with you. Like the investment that we've made in with you guys, we've made tenfold. Like it's genuinely a no-brainer. But I know that, you know, when you're in that position, when you're in that feast and famine, when you're stressed out, when you're in the thick of running an agency and you're spinning all the hats, you know, spinning all the plates yourself, like handing over money can be a really scary thing. But like, if you can take anything away from this call today, it's know that, if you're going to put your money anywhere, I think that Agency U, Austin, the team, no better place to put it.
And it's cool is like you have now all these invaluable lessons that you can now apply for the rest of your life from a business perspective. And it's not like you're going to be in the same place ever again because you have all the lessons that you need in order to actually build again.
100%.
If you ever needed to, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's so much, so many things that, you know, even just from like a lead generation perspective, running a business perspective, how to run meetings perspective, how to set quarterly goals. But like there's so many things that 6 months ago, like I'd heard about, I knew that I need to do, but it's like, what book do I read? It's overwhelming. I'm watching YouTube. All of those things are all transferable to any business, whatever that might be, for the rest of my life. And that's one of the things that I found. I am the sort of person that, like I mentioned before, like if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. But the problem with that is it can be really overwhelming and we can end up with sort of analysis paralysis of like just overconsumption. And that's one thing that I've definitely value from our calls with yourself and the team. It was really helping me bias towards action. And it's good. It's cool because I know that action is going to be the best thing because I'm working with people that have done it.
Right.
So I can trust that when you guys say, no, don't do that, just start messaging people, just start DMing people, just turn the ads on. Those are all things that I trust. And every single time we've done that, it has yielded returns.
Justin, man, thank you so much for sharing your story and jumping on. Appreciate you, dude.
Nah, dude, it's been a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for the last, for everything this year. It's been incredible. Genuinely don't know what I would have done without it. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Pumped to see what's next for you, dude. It's game time.
100%. I'm excited.